You flick off the television, put your phone face down on the nightstand, and step out of the glare of your screen. The room collapses into complete darkness, and for a brief second, the world feels wonderfully still. But then, within moments, something strange happens inside your chest. Your heart rate ticks up just a fraction. Your ears strain against the silence, searching for a creak, a footstep, or the hum of an engine down the road. You roll over, adjust your pillow, and reach back for your phone, unlocking it just to scroll through an endless feed of meaningless noise. You tell yourself you are just checking the time, but the real answer is far stranger. You are not checking the time. You are attempting to quiet a biological alarm system that has been ringing inside the human brain for over 300,000 years. We live in a world that is louder than any environment our species has ever inhabited. Cities hum with traffic, offices buzz with fluorescent lights, and our pockets vibrate with constant notifications. Yet, when we finally get the quiet we claim to crave, we frequently find it unbearable. You sit in a quiet room, and instead of feeling at peace, your mind begins to race. You replay an embarrassing interaction from 3 years ago. You worry about a project due next month. You feel an inexplicable urge to play a podcast, turn on music, or fill the void with background noise. This reaction feels like a modern psychological flaw. You might assume your short attention span or your digital addiction has ruined your ability to sit in silence. But modern neuroscience shows that this unease is not a defect. It is an ancient survival feature doing exactly what it was designed to do. To understand why silence makes you anxious, you have to look at what happens inside your brain when external noise stops. For decades, neuroscientists assumed that when a person stops focusing on a task, the brain simply slows down and rests. But in the late 1990s, a researcher named Marcus Raichle made a startling discovery while analyzing brain scans. When subjects were lying completely still in a dark, quiet room doing nothing at all, certain regions of their brain did not quiet down. In fact, they lit up like a Christmas tree. Raichle named this interconnected system the default mode network. The default mode network is your brain's idle engine. The second you stop staring at a screen, listening to someone speak, or focusing on a specific manual task, this network automatically takes control. And its job is not to relax you. Its primary job is social narrative, threat simulation, and self-reflection. It asks 3 continuous questions: who am I? What goes wrong next? And how do I fit into my tribe? When the outside world goes quiet, your default mode network turns the inner volume all the way up. It forces you to scan your internal environment because, historically, an idle mind that wasn't actively scanning for threats was a mind about to be ambushed. Think about how your ancestors experienced silence in the wild. For a hunter-gatherer living in the Pleistocene savanna, total silence was almost never a sign of safety. The natural world is full of background noise. Insects chirp, wind rustles through leaves, birds call to one another, and distant rivers flow. This constant environmental hum is what evolutionary biologists call ambient safety acoustic baseline. It tells your nervous system that the ecosystem around you is operating normally. Animals only go dead silent for one specific reason: a top predator has entered the clearing. When a tiger steps into the tall grass, the bird stops singing. The insects go quiet. The ambient noise of the forest drops to absolute zero. To an ancient human, sudden silence did not mean peace. It meant immediate, life-threatening danger. Your brain learned to pair total silence with an adrenaline spike. When the world goes quiet, your amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, interprets the silence as a warning flag. It assumes that something is hiding in the dark, waiting to strike. This evolutionary reaction is compounded by another ancient survival drive, the terror of social isolation. Human beings are remarkably weak creatures compared to other animals on the planet. You have no sharp claws, no thick fur, no powerful jaw, and you cannot outrun a leopard. The only reason your ancestors survived the African savanna was because they stayed together in tight-knit social groups. To an early human, being separated from the tribe was a death sentence. Solitude meant starvation, exposure, or predation. Dr. Matthew Lieberman, a social neuroscientist at UCLA, has demonstrated through neuroimaging that social rejection and physical isolation activate the exact same pain pathways in the human brain as a physical injury. Your brain processes loneliness using the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, the same region that registers a broken bone or a burn. When you are surrounded by silence and left entirely alone with your thoughts, your ancient brain does not realize you are sitting safely in a modern apartment with locked doors and central heating. It calculates your state based on raw sensory input, no voices, no activity, no sight of others. To your nervous system, absolute silence feels like abandonment by the pack. This is why modern digital noise acts like a psychological security blanket. When you play a video in the background, listen to a podcast while doing dishes, or leave the television on while you sleep, you are taking advantage of a loophole in your evolutionary biology. Your brain cannot distinguish between real humans standing in the room with you and digital voices coming through a tiny speaker. Hearing human speech tricks your nervous system into believing that your tribe is nearby. The background chatter signals that you are safe, enclosed, and protected by the group. You aren't addicted to your phone just because of dopamine spikes. You are addicted to the acoustic illusion of safety. When that illusion is stripped away, your brain is forced to face its own thoughts without a filter. And those thoughts are almost always biased toward the negative. Evolutionary psychologists call this the negativity bias. Your ancestors who spent their free time admiring the beauty of a sunset without worrying about tomorrow were eaten by bears. The ancestors who survived were the hypervigilant, anxious ones who constantly anticipated worst-case scenarios. They worried about winter food stores during the middle of summer. They replayed every mistake they made during yesterday's hunt to make sure they didn't repeat it tomorrow. You carry the genetic code of those hypervigilant survivors. So when silence forces your brain into the default mode network, it naturally defaults to cataloging your flaws, your failures, and your future threats. Silence strips away the superficial distractions that keep your internal critic quiet. Without external noise to process, your brain turns its powerful analytical machinery inward, dissecting your self-worth, your mortality, and your unresolved conflicts. Silence feels uncomfortable because it acts as an unsparing mirror. So why does understanding this matter? Because the solution to uncomfortable silence is not to run away from it by drowning your life in artificial noise. Research shows that chronic avoidance of silence actually degrades your mental health over time. When you constantly flood your brain with podcasts, videos, and music from the moment you wake up to the moment you fall asleep, you never allow your brain to finish processing its emotional backlog. You are constantly hitting snooze on your brain's internal maintenance cycle. Studies in mice published in the journal Brain Structure and Function found that when subjects were exposed to 2 hours of complete silence per day, they developed new cells in the hippocampus, the region of the brain responsible for memory, learning, and emotional regulation. Silence literally grows your brain. It allows the default mode network to execute its vital work of organizing memories, integrating complex experiences, and building a cohesive sense of self. The initial discomfort you feel when you turn off the noise is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is simply the friction of your brain switching gears from external consumption to internal processing. Tonight, when the sun goes down, you are going to flip a switch. Light will flood the room, or you will turn on a screen, and you won't think twice about it. But when you finally step into the dark and turn off the sound, remember why that quiet feels so heavy. Your heart rate might tick up. Your mind might start to race. Your hands might reach for a device to fill the void. But you are not broken. You are simply carrying the ancient wiring of a species that survived by listening carefully to the dark. The silence isn't trying to hurt you. It is simply giving your mind the room it needs to finally speak.